The White House's so-called compromise of a $1.7 trillion infrastructure proposal actually cuts down on spending for roads, bridges, and other major projects. So are there any Republicans who are falling for it? Joining us now is Nancy Mace, South Carolina Congresswoman on the Transportation and Infrastructure and Oversight and Reform Committees. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. First of all, you said, I kind of like your language here, you said President Biden's just playing footsies with Republicans on infrastructure, on any kind of compromise. What did you mean by that?
Well, he's just been playing games for weeks now. He's had Republicans from both the Senate and the House. They've met multiple times, and he keeps pushing back on fiscally responsible proposals that our side is trying to put together. And in their last package, they're just shuffling money around. They're not willing to cut some of the crazy spending that's in the original infrastructure bill. And as you just said, they're actually cutting from roads and bridges funding. Yeah. I just brought my kids home from school, and every hardworking American, we know what our roads are like. We know what real infrastructure is, and it's not school lunches.
No, yeah. No. But we did hear of a counter proposal, and I talked about it with Senator Daines to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure, real infrastructure, and use $700 billion that's from previous COVID money that's still in the Treasury. Do you know anything about that, and would you be willing to accept that kind of a counter proposal?
Well, I've just heard that being floated around today in the media, and I believe if we could repurpose billions of dollars of unspent COVID relief funds and avoid raising taxes to pay for the infrastructure package, I believe on the Republican side you will see an appetite for that in the Senate and in the House, because the last thing we need to do in the middle of a pandemic when businesses are suffering is to raise taxes on them.
Yeah, well, and then we have Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who says that he is going to go back to that the Biden administration, or at least parts of it, want to go back to the $2.3 trillion plan, bypass Republicans entirely, and go to reconciliation and pass this by a vote of the vice president. If there's a 50-50 split in the Senate. Do you know anything? Is that a real possibility? First of all, would the parliamentarian in Congress allow that to happen?
Well, it's hard to say yet. We are hearing that budget reconciliation is one route that Democrats may try to take. I know on the House side, on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, we keep hearing timelines and deadlines for a markup in full committee for a package, but those timelines keep getting pushed back. So time will tell. And if it doesn't get done this summer, then I believe after August recess, if it's not done then, that they will try to push it through a reconciliation process, which likely means Republicans will have no say in any package that comes out of there.
But again, do you know whether that would be deemed acceptable by the parliamentarian who's supposed to look at the rules?
Well, we thought we couldn't do it with the COVID relief package, and they did it anyway. So it'll really be up to the parliamentarian to make that decision.
It's amazing the needles that are being threaded by the Democrats' control now of all this. Now, there's one part that was of one of the plans. There are many American plans. There's the American Jobs Plan, there's the American Families Plan, et cetera. The America's Families Plan hasn't even begun the negotiation yet, but we already know they want to put this tax plan in to give the IRS enormous power to not only look at the incoming, the money that comes into our bank accounts, but to look at how you spend that money as well. Of course, that could lead to trying to do profiles with algorithms of what kind of people they're looking into, and that could lead to targeting individuals politically. Are you upset about that, and are you looking to kind of make sure that doesn't make it in the final cut?
Oh, absolutely. And what we've seen over the last couple of months and years even is the overreach of the federal government. We just saw it a few weeks ago with the post office, who, they can barely deliver the mail. They lose $5 billion a year. And yet now they have a spying program on Americans. And so the overreach of the federal government is problematic. It is troublesome. And we've got to do everything we can to ensure that doesn't happen to innocent American people. We saw it in the IRS, too, with Lois Lerner targeting conservative groups and conservative individuals.
I want to ask about Wuhan. It's a big jump here, but it's so important to find out how the virus originated and how it became a pandemic. What do you plan to do in the minority in order to try to pursue this? The Biden administration wants to let the WHO, which of course many people say has been compromised by the Chinese government, so that's not going to do a lot of good. But But is there any way you can investigate it on your own as the minority party in Congress?
Well, I know there's an appetite for that with Republicans on the Oversight and Reform Committee, and we are trying to do just that. But because we're in the minority, it's very difficult. Just last year, Dr. Fauci told us that COVID-19 is of natural origin.
Right.
And then we're hearing today, President Trump said that could be a possibility it originated from a lab, and all the media attacked him for it and said it was a conspiracy theory. And yet today we have media like in the New York Times, a prominent reporter saying it was Trump's fault that the laboratory
well,
idea
as a
was
matter
not
of fact, it's interesting you mentioned that, because we have a soundbite from one of the mainstream reporters trying to put it on Trump, even though a year ago when Trump was talking about it, the media didn't want to hear about it. Let me play that soundbite and get back to you.
I do think it's important to remember that part of the issue when this was first being reported on and discussed back a few months after the pandemic had begun was that then President Trump and Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, both suggested they had seen evidence that this was formed in a lab, and they also suggested it was not released on purpose, but they refused to release the evidence showing what it was. And so because of that, that made this instantly political.
That was Maggie Haberman from the New York Times, and it's just extraordinary. They were the ones who were casting a great shadow on the so-called conspiracy theory that had originated from the Wuhan lab, and now they're blaming Trump somehow in some circuitous logic for this whole thing. What do you think?
It's complete irony. And now I look at it today. It's been 15 months since COVID-19 really has entrapped the American public. And there are two answers we should have is one, what is the true origin of COVID-19 and who covered it up, number one? And two, why has it been 15 months? And we know nothing more today than we knew 15 months ago. Nothing, literally nothing has been investigated.
I wouldn't say nothing. Forgive me for pushing back, but if it wasn't for the Wall Street Journal's reporting, perhaps you'd be right. But at least there are independent investigators in the Wall Street Journal, and we're trying to do it here at Fox to try to look into it. But the question is, will we know, or is it possible that the leads have gone cold?
Well, Republicans are going to try, but in oversight, and we're seeing the way Democrats operate under the Biden administration, I'm doubtful that Congress will do anything to investigate the original origins of COVID-19 and who's actually responsible. I have little hope in that happening in this administration.
Representative Mace, we thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.